What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Johnny K Picks. And in this video, I'm going to go over my full card picks and predictions for UFC 270 Ngannou versus Gane. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So a few highlights from UFC Vegas 46 was definitely the Kattar and Chikadze fight. So I already knew that Kattar was a tough guy, and I was actually really impressed with him walking down Giga all 5 rounds, and he gave Giga no room to do anything. He couldn't kick, he barely could punch, and he just kept going forward, and that's a good blueprint to beat Giga in the future for anyone that wants to fight him. I will give Giga some props though. He lasted all 5 rounds. He took some good shots, some good elbows, and he did look good in the beginning, but he slowly started to fade as the fight went on. And that's the thing with Giga. He wasn't ever battle tested to 5 rounds, but I think he'll come away from this fight and he'll learn and he'll do better in the next fight. Some other good performance wins were by McGee, Borishev, Chikagian, and Royval. So controversy of the night, did Boncharin tap? Honestly, it looked like he did watching it live, and I think they did show a different angle, a replay, and after watching that replay, it really didn't look like he tapped, but man, it was really close to being a tap, and if it would have ended right there, I would have been okay with it because, like I said, definitely looked like a tap live. And either way, Royval ended up winning. And surprise of the night is Collier winning by submission? Not gonna lie though, I was smiling and laughing while this was going on because I did not see that one coming. And he looked pretty good on the ground. I know Sherman's not the greatest grappler. He's more of a stand-up fighter. But hey, Collier took advantage of it and ended up getting a submission, so a good win for him. Okay, so those were my highlights, so let's get to my picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 270. First fight we have is Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Kay Hansen. Jasmine is 6-1, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. And Hansen is 7-4, 22 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. So first fight of the night, and I'm going to go with the underdog in this one, and I'm going to pick Jasudavicius to win. So I'm going to be real right now, this is a low-level women's MMA fight, so anything can happen. But in this fight, Jasmine's going to have the massive height advantage and the massive reach advantage, and that's going to play a big part in this fight, I think. If Jasmine can just stay at range on the feet and stuff Kay Hansen's takedowns, I do think she's going to end up grinding this out and win by decision. Next fight we have is Matt Frevola versus Gennario Valdez. Frevola is 8-3-1, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. And Valdez is 10-0, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. So I think this fight's going to be a pretty good one, and I'm going to side with Frevola in this one. Both fighters like to use their wrestling, and they like to go for takedowns. And although Frevola lost his last 2 fights, I do think he is the better fighter in this matchup. So Valdez is making his UFC debut and coming off a Dana White Contender Series win, but man, if you go back and watch that win, it was super dicey in the first round. He almost got knocked out in the first round. He stumbled around a bit, and his cardio faded very fast. But he ended up getting the win in the second round, but it was, like I said, super dicey, and I just can't trust that cardio. I will say, though, I am a little worried about Frevola's chin because he did get knocked out in like 7 seconds in his last fight. But like I said, I do think he's the better fighter. I think he's the better striker, and he's a good wrestler. So I think he's going to end up grinding out a decision win here. All right, moving on up the card, we have Vanessa Demopoulos versus Silvana Gomez Juarez. Demopoulos is 6-4, 33 years old, 5'2" with a 62-inch reach. And Juarez is 10-3, 37 years old, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. This fight was supposed to happen last week at UFC Vegas 46, and I already broke it down. But I'm going to stay with my original pick, and I'm going to say Demopoulos wins this one. As I said before in my last video, I think she's the better fighter. She may not have the striking edge, but she's definitely going to have the grappling edge. I will say, though, Juarez does have some power in her hands, but I don't think she's going to be able to knock out Demopoulos. And I know Demopoulos' takedown accuracy isn't the greatest, but I do think this fight is going to get to the mat somehow. And once that happens, I think Demopoulos will wrap up a submission win. Next fight we have is Michael Morales versus Trevin Giles. Morales is 12-0, 22 years old, 6 foot with a 79-inch reach. And Giles is 14-3, 29 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. This fight is probably the fight that I kept going back and forth the most with. I know Morales is super young. This is going to be his UFC debut, but I just cannot pick against him. So I'm going to pick Morales to win this one. So in this matchup, I do think he's going to have the better grappling and submission game. And in the striking department, I do think they're both on par, but Morales has a 5-inch reach advantage. So if he does want to keep this fight standing, he can just stay at range. Giles has fought in the UFC several times already, and he's done fairly well against some good opponents. So again, this is a close fight, but I'm going to stick with my gut, and I'm going to say Morales wins by decision. Next fight we have is Tony Gravely versus Stamann Oliveira. Gravely is 21-7, 30 years old, 5'5" with a 69-inch reach. And Oliveira is 18-3, 30 years old, 5'6", with a 67-inch reach. Alright, so we finally have the first no-brainer pick for me, and I'm going to say that Tony Gravely wins. So for once, Gravely is finally fighting a fighter that's about his size, because normally he fights guys that are like 2, 3, 4 inches taller with a 2, 3, 4 inch reach advantage. So to me, Tony Gravely has the striking advantage. He's going to have the power advantage as well on the feet. And we all know that Gravely's a really good wrestler. The one good thing about Oliveira, though, is he's a really good submission artist and he's a good grappler. So if Gravely does take him down, he's going to have to be careful when he's on top. But like I said, Gravely's going to have the striking advantage. So if he does keep it on the feet, I wouldn't be surprised if Gravely gets a knockout. So with my pick, I am going to say that Tony gets the knockout maybe in the second round. Alright, moving on up the card, we have Jack Della Maddalena versus Pete Rodriguez. Maddalena is 10-2, 25 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. And Rodriguez is 4-0, 25 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. Okay, so right off the bat, both fighters are making their UFC debut. And someone is definitely going to get knocked out in this fight. But with my pick, I'm going to say that Maddalena gets the knockout. Both fighters are mainly strikers, and they like to finish their opponents usually in the first or second round. But I just think Maddalena is the more technical striker. I think he brings a little bit more to the table. He has a little bit more experience as well. I don't see this fight going to the mat unless maybe there's a knockdown and somebody goes down for ground and pound. But with my pick here, I'm going to say that Maddalena wins by knockout in the first round. Next fight we have is Ilia Topuria versus Charles Jourdain. Topuria is 11-0, 25 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. And Jourdain is 12-4-1, 26 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. So for me, this fight is going to be a low-key banger, and honestly, I'm pretty excited to see this one. But with my pick, I'm going to say Topuria ends up winning. If you guys watch my top prospects for 2022 video, you'll know that I'm really high on Topuria. And I do think eventually he can become a contender sooner rather than later. He's super well-rounded and there's really nothing he can't do. But I do think Jourdain's going to be a good test for him, because I do think Jourdain's going to come out and give Topuria everything that he has. Jourdain is mainly a striker and he likes to push forward a lot. And he's a little bit wild at times, but his cardio is there, and he's just going to continue to move forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how Topuria handles this. But I do think Topuria is going to stand and strike with him, and he's going to mix in his takedowns when he can. And once Topuria is down on the mat, I can see him getting the submission maybe in the second or third round. Next fight we have is Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. Barcelos is 16-2, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, and Henry is 21-5, 34 years old, 5'7", and his reach isn't listed. So again, with this fight, it was supposed to happen last week at UFC Vegas 46, and maybe even before that too. It just keeps getting rescheduled for some reason. but I'm going to stick with my original pick, and I'm going to say that Barcelos wins. So Barcelos is very well-rounded. He has good striking, he has good takedown accuracy, he has a good ground game, and he's also fought the better competition. And again, I feel like I've been saying this whole video, but Henry's making his UFC debut, and though he is a solid guy too, I just think Barcelos is one step better than Henry right now. I don't think Barcelos will get a finish because Henry's never been finished before in his career, so I'll say Barcelos wins this one by decision. Alright, moving on up the card, we had Rodolfo Vieira versus Wellington Turman. Vieira is 8-1, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach, and Turman is 17-5, 25 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. Alright, so we have our first grappler versus grappler showdown. So obviously both guys are excellent submission artists, but I'm going to be honest, why do I feel like this fight is going to play out on the feet and just be a striking showdown? But either way, I'm going to say that Vieira wins this one. So both fighters' striking isn't the greatest. Like I said, they're mainly submission artists, but I will give Vieira the power advantage. And we've seen recently that Turman's chin is a little dicey. So I do think Vieira can land one good clean shot and knock down Turman. And I know with picking Vieira, his cardio is a little lackluster, but in his last fight, he ended up doing pretty good with his cardio from his first fight. So I'm going to say that his cardio is going to be a little bit more improved from last fight. And I'm going to go out on the limb here and say that Vieira is going to knock down Turman, and he's going to wrap up a quick submission, maybe like a rear naked choke in the second round. Next fight we have is Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmagomedov. Stamann is 19-4-1, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 64.5-inch reach. And Nurmagomedov is 14-2, 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to say that Nurmagomedov wins this one. He's going to be the better striker by far in this matchup, and his wrestling is pretty decent. But we all know Stamann's game is wrestling, and his game plan is literally just to take down his opponent and stay on top. But I really think he's going to have a tough time trying to take down Nurmagomedov. His height advantage and reach advantage is going to be an issue for Stamann. And the way I see this fight playing out is I think Nurmagomedov is going to keep his distance, he's going to use his jab effectively, and he's going to stuff all of Stamann's takedowns, and eventually he's just going to outstrike Stamann for 3 rounds and get the unanimous decision. Next fight we have is Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. Pereira is 26-11, 28 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. And Fialho is 14-3, 27 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Pereira was supposed to fight last week again, and his fight got canceled, and the newcomer for him is Fialho. But with my pick, I still think Pereira is still going to win this one. As I said in my last video, we all know Pereira is a little bit of a wild card, but I'll be honest, in his last 2 fights against Nico Price and Chaos Williams, he looked really good, and his cardio seemed to be a little bit better. And that may be because he dialed back on his craziness just a little bit. But anyways, both these fighters are mainly strikers, although Pereira can take the fight to the mat, so you have to look out for that. But again, as I said, this is Fialho's UFC debut, and I just think Pereira's experience is going to shine here. Fialho's does have good power, and he is a knockout guy. Most of his finishes are in the first round, but I do think Pereira can survive the first round, and he could drag this into the later rounds to get a finish here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Pereira wins this one, and I'm going to say by submission, maybe in the second round by a rear naked choke. Alright guys, co-main event time. We have Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Moreno is 19-5-2, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. And Figueiredo is 22-1, 34 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. So the trilogy is finally here. And I may be in the minority in this one, but I'm going to say that Moreno does not defend his title, and Figueiredo is going to win this one and get his belt back. So this is going to be a good fight. Both fighters are super well-rounded. They're both good strikers, and they're both good on the mat. But I just think Figueiredo is the more dangerous fighter. And don't get me wrong, Moreno is super tough. He has really good cardio, but I've seen some pictures on Twitter of Deiveson Figueiredo, and he looks shredded. And I really do think he's taking this fight super serious. Also, another thing to point out, it looks like he's training with Henry Cejudo, so he may want to implement a little bit of a wrestling game plan in this fight, which I do think will help him out because I do think he's a little bit better than Moreno on the mat. But the only red flag that I have with Figueiredo is his cardio and potential weight misses. We all know he's a pretty big guy for being a flyweight. And apparently in the last 2 fights against Moreno, he had to go to the hospital one time. And the other time he said he wasn't really feeling himself. And I'm not sure if that's because he had a bad weight cut or what. But I'm not going to let that sway my pick this time. And another thing I want to add here, in the first fight against Moreno, he got a point deducted for a low blow. And if he didn't get deducted that 1 point, he'd still be the champion right now because he would have won that by decision. And these last 2 fights wouldn't have happened. But either way, this fight's going to be really fun to watch. But with my pick, I'm going to say that Figueiredo wins this one. And honestly, I'm going to say he gets a submission win. I know I've been saying a lot of submission wins this time, but hey, I think it's going to happen. Okay, so we got main event time. We have Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. Ngannou is 16-3, 35 years old, 6'4" with an 83-inch reach. And Gane is 10-0, 31 years old, 6'4" with an 83-inch reach. Alright, so main event time. We have the big boys fighting, and I am really looking forward to this fight. I gotta say, I've been going back and forth with this one, but I'm going to stick with my gut, and I'm going to say that Ciryl Gane's going to win. Gane is the better overall fighter. I think his striking is more technical. He throws more volume. He's quicker. He's better on the mat. He has a really good submission game. And he has the cardio to go all 5 rounds. But the one thing that he lacks, Ngannou has plenty of, and that's power. It's only going to take Ngannou 1 clean strike to the face to knock down Gane, and that's going to be game over. But the way I see this fight playing out is I think Gane's going to be careful with him in the first round or 2. He's going to just stay on the outside. He's going to use his kicks to keep range. And if he can survive the first and second round, I do think he's going to end up running away with this. Because we've seen Ngannou gas out after the second round. And if you look at all of Ngannou's wins in the UFC, he's been winning first round knockouts all under 2 minutes. So like I said, with my pick, I'm going to say that Gane wins. And this may not be the popular method of victory. But again, I'm going to say Gane wins by submission. Because I think he's going to tire out Ngannou maybe in the 3rd or 4th round. And he's going to end up getting Ngannou tired enough to where he's going to wrap up a rear naked choke. Or maybe even like a guillotine. So yeah, that's my hot take of the night. Alright guys, so those are my picks and predictions for UFC 270. Thank you everybody for watching. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend. And as always, happy fighting.